And then we continue the sentence. So the third sentence, in the middle of the sentence, we have this interruption, and then we continue after the comma with an especially high risk during the freshman year of college, and then another interruption. The instance of sexual assault is particularly concerning because of the wide range of negative outcomes experienced after an assault, including increased substance use, depression, and PTSD, and another interruption. So when I was young, I used to find this stuff really hard to read when I was new. And you guys think, I hope, I'm a good reader. I've been reading since I was little. I don't need to be taught how to read. But I dare say that, let's liken it to a musician. Even if you're a very skillful musician, that doesn't mean that you automatically know how to play every instrument. And so I offer you here that you have to learn how to read a research article. And if you read it the same way you read a novel or a history book or anything else, you're just going to be getting it wrong. You're just going to be frustrated and so this is why we take time to think about how to read a research article. I never had this when I was young. That's why I find it important. I had to kind of make my way through that. So you're going to be starting to read these things. By next class, I'm hoping that you'll come in with a general topic that interests you and maybe even with a preliminary question. And then you're going to start getting some of these articles. And what the library does is it gets you access to things that you can't get online. And what I do that's even more than what our library here at DC does is I'm a designated colleague at University of Arizona, and so I can get even more resources than you can get here. So if you can't get it here, I can get it for you. So you're going to find the right articles. So how are we going to do this? Okay. Well, this is what you're doing. You're going to come in with your topic and your question. And now we're starting right here. So here's your question. We're going to start right here, looking at the literature so that we can tweak that question and eventually form a hypothesis. So let's jump down to, I'll jump down to here. This I'm going to talk to you more after the librarian leaves in our next class. We'll see how the timing goes. But in the end, for this class, you're going to need to have, not that many really. You're going to have to find peer-reviewed articles. These are scientific articles. They need to be current within the last 10 to 15 years, unless it's a seminal study that you're including as a broad reference. Quantitative, this is the preference for this class, because remember you have another class on Indigenous methods, which is qualitative, so there's got to be numbers in there. And hopefully, ideally, original research reports, not reviews, not meta-analysis, not theoretical papers, but research reports. We did this study and these were the results. You're going to need at least 12 for your annotated bibliography, and at least 6 of those 12 included in your lit review in your paper. Okay. You're going to have to deal with this. So it's helpful if someone shows you how to navigate your research article. So a research article has these major components. And if you know about them, it'll be a little easier. So the first thing you're going to see in your research article is a title. And it's going to have a lot of words. And it might not be designed to get your attention, it's just going to tell you what the study's about. And then you're going to see the abstract, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. And then you're going to see like an introduction and a literature review, and there might be some subheadings in there. And then you're going to see a section called method, telling what the study is. And then you're going to see a section called results, and then a section called discussion. And this is a basic APA style paper will have all these sections. And then you're going to have a reference page, which is just an alphabetical list of all the sources in the study. And then you might have appendices. And so if there's scales and things that you're including in the study, those might be in the appendices. Okay? So that's basically what you're going to see when you look at your article. So now that you know that, you can know where to focus your attention and how to read each section. So I'm taking off on the article that you were assigned, the Jordan and Zana article, and I'm covering some of what they did and adding some of my own thoughts. But this is how that article shapes out. The title, and then there's a real tight little abstract. And then there's this like introductory paragraph, usually followed by the lit review. Sometimes we combine this here and just put it as one section where you're setting the stage for your study. Then you're telling your readers what you did, and then you're discussing your results. You're sharing your results and then discussing them. And then usually there's a final paragraph where you conclude and then your reference. So one of the first things you're going to do next week when you start, after Thursday, when you start looking for articles, is you're going to be spending a lot of time with the title. Because when you do your first literature search, that's what you're going to come up with. Lots and lots of titles. So you'll be coming up with, you might be searching. You told me last time, Cody, what an idea, oh no, music. Let's just say music and psychology. Say that. Now I'm Arnisha and I'm going to start searching this topic and I don't know anything about what's happening with music and psychology. So let's just see what people are doing. I'm just going to type music, psychology and see what happens. To begin. Okay, now it's giving me a whole bunch of really general stuff. So I'm going to narrow it to peer reviewed. I'm not going to sign in right now because I'm just giving an example. And so I'm still not seeing quite what I want. And so maybe I would narrow it and tell it I want articles and I want these to be social science or something like that. Let's click this. All right. Music and communication in music psychology. Replication in music psychology. Short-term music training enhances verbal intelligence and executive function. Maybe we should all get short-term music training. Maybe this is interesting. So you see how clear many of these titles are. Boundaries and Thresholds, Conceptual Models of the Musical Mind in the History of Psychology. Current Emotion Research. The Role of Music Preferences in Interpersonal Perception. So the title is going to give you a lot of information. You'll probably look at the title as your starting point. And then next, you're going to start to look at the abstract. And the abstract is this. It is a simple, specific, clear, unbiased, honest, concise, standalone, structured paragraph, one paragraph, of about 150 to 250 words that tells every single thing you did in short. It's going to have the rationale, your hypothesis, a broad statement of your study, your findings and implications. This could be 5 sentences. 1 sentence for your rationale, 1 sentence for your hypothesis, 1 for the study, 1 for findings, and 1 for implications. So this is going to give you a really good idea of why do you want to read the study. So that's where you're going to start. Just looking at this title, I just took this one from the Jordan article. Look at this title. Sad and Guilty, Affective Influences on the Explanation of Conflict in Close Relationships. So you already know a lot about what this is. You're looking at emotions, that's what affect is. You're looking at how emotions influence how you explain conflict in your close relationships. So if you have, I guess they're saying if you're sad and feeling guilty, you're going to explain conflict differently in your intimate relationship with your spouse or whatever. And then finally, I put this up here because your title and abstract are just like a movie preview. You know, back when we used to go to theaters more, they often show these previews, right? And what do you do when you watch those previews? I like them. If I can, I write down the titles of the movies that I want to see that I've seen a preview for, because otherwise I inevitably forget. But should I assume that if I've seen the preview, I don't need to bother with the movie? No. And it's the same for this abstract idea. Just because I've seen the abstract and read it, and I think it looks good, doesn't mean I can skip the article. So think of it that way. It's a starting point, though. It tells you what you should read. All right, so next, you're going to come to the lit review. And so you're going to start by reading this introduction. We'll look at some examples. And your introduction will tell you why the problem is important, what question needs answering, why it's important to answer the question. So the lit review may or may not have a heading. It should lay out the whole sequence that precedes the study that they're describing. It should introduce key theories, like in case the reader isn't familiar with a theory. It should introduce any key terms. Like if they're going to be talking a lot about affective influences, they should explain what they mean by that. Or if I'm going to be talking a lot about irritability, I should explain what I mean by that. You know, somewhere here, this should be clear. And then the lit review section ends with the stating of the gap, the research question, and the hypotheses. So every single sentence that you're going to see in this lit review is going to be cited. That means that they're going to tell you exactly where it came from. And that's because they can't just make stuff up, you know. They have to be true to the research foundation and make sure they're building on a strong foundation. And that's what we were seeing when I showed you that research article just a minute ago, this one. All of these citations. This is just the researchers telling us, like they say the high incidence is concerning because there are negative outcomes after an assault. Well, now they're telling us, we didn't just make this up. There's evidence, and this is the evidence. Just like in court, you don't want the prosecutor to just make stuff up. The prosecutor's got to give evidence and tell us where the evidence is from. And so that's what this is about. You might see acronyms. That's because a lot of times journal articles have page limitations. They want to be very short and concise. Acronym just means a short abbreviation. Like an acronym for independent variable is IV. That's an acronym. But in APA style, the first time they use the acronym, they write the whole word out. You're going to be doing this too. They write out independent variable. Independent variable. Write it all out. And then in parentheses, they tell us what acronym they're going to use, IV. And then any time after that that they mention IV, they just say IV. They never again repeat what it stands for. So you might come across an acronym and say, what the heck does this mean? Well, you have to go back and read earlier and find out what that means. And each sentence is going to be really dense. So you can't do this as bedtime reading. It's just not going to work. Voice of experience. Okay. Next section is kind of fun. So you'll get through the lit review. You're going to do your best to glean why the researchers, glean the logic of the researcher. Then you're going to come to the method. Pay attention to this. This is where your critique comes in. Like they might claim that they're measuring, my example, irritability, and they're just doing it on self-report scale, like asking the boys how irritable they feel. Maybe you think that's a lousy way to measure it. Or maybe they only used 5 boys and you don't think that's enough participants. Or maybe they used boys who like had never been exposed to video games before in their lives, you know. So this is where your most critique comes in. So here, they're going to describe the study so well that you could do the study yourself. They're going to tell you who was in it. They're going to tell you what they used, exactly what they did. And this is where your critique comes in. This is where your critical thinking mind, not your critical mind, but your mind that says, did they do this right, or can I find some flaws in their logic and the way they put it together? And so this section you should read. It'll be interesting to you. The lit review, you just want to get the point of the theoretical foundation and all that, get the idea. Method is going to be easy and kind of fun. Results. This is going to be really hard because all it's going to be presenting is statistics. So you're going to see like charts and numbers and Greek symbols, and you might not know what it means. You probably won't know what it means. And so there, you shouldn't skip it, but you should be kind and gentle to yourself if you don't get it, okay? Things you can look for are things like significantly higher or significant difference. That means that they had a significant finding. And you can look for this, p less than 0.05. That also means significant, okay? That's what you can look for in the results. So don't sweat it, you probably won't get it. And then the discussion is where they're going to explain all those results in language you can understand, and they're going to tell you what it means, okay, why it's important. They'll probably circle back to all that literature review and help you understand that. They definitely need to talk about what we call limitations. These are factors that they critique their own study, and they say, in this study, we didn't do this. But we think this is still okay. You know, usually that's what they do. They tell you what the limitations are and then why they think it's still okay. They usually suggest future research. In fact, if you don't have an idea for a study, you can read someone's future research and you can just grab that idea. And often, if the researcher thinks it's really important, they might tell it, oh, we think this should happen. We think that policy should be changed, practices should be changed. So now let's take a look at this in two articles. First one is the one we just looked at. I'm also going to show you this one because it's a little simpler. So first off, let's look at the title. Young children show the bystander effect in helping situations. Gives you an idea of what this is about, right? Bystander effect, we know that. We know we're dealing with young children. Here's the abstract. Much research in social psychology has shown that otherwise helpful people fail to help when bystanders are present. Research in developmental psychology has shown that even very young children help, and that the presence of others can actually increase helping in some cases. In the current study, in contrast, 5-year-old children helped an experimenter at very high levels when they were alone, but helped significantly less often in the presence of bystanders who were potentially available to help. In another condition designed to elucidate the mechanism underlying this effect, children's helping was not reduced when bystanders were present. When bystanders were present but confined behind a barrier and thus unable to help. Young children thus show the bystander effect, and it is not due to social references or shyness to act in front of others, but rather to a sense of diffusion of responsibility. That's your trailer. You have to think, is this relevant to my research question? Is this relevant? Does this put me anywhere? So now let's just look through at this. We can see here the same kind of thing. Humans are inordinately helpful. Not only do we help our kin and friends, we sometimes even help complete strangers. There are good reasons for this. First, by helping someone, we increase the chances that we will be helped later. And then they tell us who found that in their study, or by others. Thus, helping enhances our reputation. So they go out, they lay out this whole theme that they have. And they're going to take us, I'm not going to read all of this. I'm going to take you to 2 points. Here is where they identify what we call the gap in the literature. What little research has been done on how the presence of others can affect children's behavior has focused mainly on how others' presence can increase helping. So now they're saying, look what's missing. There's very little research on children's helping behavior, and the focus is different. Look at this. Only one previous study has looked for the bystander effect in children. There's a gap in the research. So if you were asked to identify the gap in the research, this is what you would say. Here then, based on the gap of the research, they use this word therefore. In this study, we therefore investigated whether young children's tendency to be helped can be reduced by the presence of bystanders. Therefore, linking it is the word that links it back to the gap. Because of that gap, then they tell us a little bit about what they did and why they did it, an additional aim, why they included those conditions, and then they explain why they used 5-year-olds, and they say why this result would be important. If we found decreased helping in the presence of bystanders, this result would provide an important contrast to those findings and a richer picture of the complexity of young children's helping behavior. And then you can see now we get into the easy to understand section. Participants, they tell how many they had, how they did it. In this article, they even have pictures of what they did. So you could imagine much more easily how they conducted the study. Tell us all about their participants. They tell us that some children refused to participate. Then they tell us exactly what they did. And so this part will be fun to read. Kind of cool. How they set it up, how they set the room up, what the researchers said. Like this researcher, after half a minute, the experimenter accidentally knocked over the cup and spilled colored water all over her table. She tried to hold back the water with her forearms to prevent it from spilling on the floor. During the first 15 seconds after spilling the water, she looked down at the water, said, oops, and groaned. She repeated this 2 more times, oops. And you guys are the children. I'm trying to see if you come to help. And there's already been paper towels on the floor that you could grab and bring to me. So that's established. After those 15 seconds, if participants had not yet helped, she said, my cup has fallen over. After 30 seconds, she said, the water is about to drip onto the floor. After 45 seconds, she said, I need something to wipe it up, while looking back and forth between the water and the paper towels that were there and waiting to see if the child would help. After 60 seconds, she said, I need the paper towels there. Then for the first time, she looks at the children. So you see how specific they get? I mean, right? And then they also had to code helping. So how are they going to tell if the child was helpful and be consistent? So yeah, that's kind of interesting. And then if you look at the results section, this one's kind of nice actually, because they have the results in a nice graphic form, a little easier to understand. But then look at this. Excellent agreement on the number of time participants looked toward the bystanders. R equals 0.95, no difference between quarters. Mann-Whitney U-test, P equals 0.65. And the interview responses, all K's greater than 0.82. You see, you're not going to know what that means. And it's okay. They have to tell it to be true to it. So that's what the results look like. They're kind of harder to understand. And then the discussion explains all of it in words that we can understand. So that's it. So, while the point of this little section was to give you an idea of what to expect on Thursday when you start looking for articles. All right?
Is it for our research topic?
It's for your topic. So let's take this last time and hear again about what topics you're thinking of. And can I And your topic can be just one word, like something around music is adequate right now. But if you have anything more specific, that's good. And this is the kind of conversation, Titania, Tanisha, and Chas, I think that maybe Tanisha was here, I'm not sure, but we are discussing changing our class to twice a week. To a 2 o'clock time on Tuesdays and a 4 o'clock time on Thursdays. And people come either to the Tuesday or the Thursday. And then I make little lectures, mini lectures to help you with the concepts. And then we discuss them during that time. And we use our time together for you guys to talk more and engage about your topics. And I know, Titania, you're a 4 o'clock person. And I think a couple other people said they would come at 4 o'clock Thursdays, but then you wouldn't come on Tuesdays anymore. We would have the full class session on Thursdays. So I'll send out an email clarifying all that. And I might even call some people to see if this is going to work. But this Thursday, we're coming at our regular time because the librarian is coming. So let me ask you a general topic within psychology that interests you, Titania. And if you guys have thoughts, let us know. So Titania, a general topic that kind of interests you around psychology?
I would say recently would be more about helping, I guess, ways to help special need children, like in school or something.
Okay, so it's a pretty broad topic right now. And I think if you start searching special needs, you might have a little difficulty, but if you identify a specific type of disability, like learning disability or emotional disorder, you probably have a better chance of finding a relevant learning. Is there one in particular that interests you? Like, is it learning disabilities? Or
I'm not really sure right now. I'm still thinking about it. Yeah.
and so you're looking at effective techniques.
Yeah, effective techniques.
Okay, and so you'll also think when you're thinking about this is help in what way? Like help in reading?
I guess like learning, like to help them go back into the classroom.
Oh, very nice.
Kind of, yeah, kind of instead of like separating them, and
So-
they'll be able to come back into the classroom and learn in the classroom with everyone else.
Oh, okay. I thought you were meaning after COVID, when everyone was home, but you're thinking of
Oh.
what's called mainstreaming?
Yeah,
Or inclusion.
Yeah.
Inclusion is the more current word probably. So techniques that are beneficial for inclusion. And so then what you're going to be, remember, this isn't going to be just a research report where you're reading stuff and telling us what you read. You're going to think of your own unique study. So you're going to take, once you start reading, you're going to think of what you think might help. There might be an idea you have of something that would help, and that's the start of your own hypothesis. Okay, so you think about your own experience, which is valuable and rich. And it's important to find out what other people have done, but your own observations are your contribution. And that's what you'll study. So thanks, Titania. And 4 o'clock on Thursdays, we'll maybe shift out, and then you don't need to come on Tuesdays, and we'll have our class for about half the class coming 4 o'clock on Thursdays. And the other half of the class coming 2 o'clock on Tuesdays. Okay. All right. Tanisha, what kind of topic have you been playing around with?
When we talked about the marriage and divorce
Okay. So
topic.
something in the relationship literature, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there again, you can think about narrowing it, you know, so there's a ton of research. And so as you think about it, think about, are you interested in like conflict resolution or predicting marital stability? Or does it make a difference whether people are married or just live together? Maybe you're interested in that, or so there might be a number of things, and you'll narrow it down as you begin reading. And Chas, where are you right now?
I'm thinking more of adolescent suicide. Or other than that, I was also thinking about communication in a relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe when you start I don't know if it was you that I showed that one study too about, there's studies just that show that using the words we, if like you're interviewing a couple and they're together, the proportion of times that each member of the couple uses the word we versus I is a predictor of the eventual outcome of the relationship. You know, so there's some really interesting work around this.
Yeah, I found it very interesting because I noticed that a few of my friends like to use the word I instead of we when they're talking about their spouse.
Yeah. Yeah, and it shows how much you've integrated your sense of self and identity with your partner, and too much isn't good, but too little isn't good either. So yeah, it's a strong indicator. So yeah, so you're gonna have to probably do a lot of narrowing down, but that's why if we get together in these small groups, we can help each other through this. And so that's one of the benefits I can foresee in coming together in smaller groups instead of everyone in every session and me lecturing, which I can just as easily record the lectures and then you can bring your questions. So,
Okay.
all right, well, I think we're gonna wrap it up for today. So I'll tell Rhiannon to come about 15 minutes after our class starts. And in the meantime, I'll just refresh you on what we're doing. And I think I'll recommend that for her. And then after that, you can start your search right away and start your process of reading. So,
I think I got a question.
okay.
So with the topic, I was thinking like, if painting has, or the music has an effect on like painting, so like one group would do like music with painting and then one with no music and painting. I was wondering if that's like a good one.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, okay.
So you're hypothesizing something about the effect of music on, what is it that you would measure, on creativity or on color choice or on?
Maybe, yeah, just creativity.
Okay. And so you'd have to have some sort of a way to measure or quantify creativity, but there probably exist measures for that. So you'll want to think too about what your dependent variable is, like what do you want to measure? You know, like,
Okay.
do you think it would have an impact on creativity? What else might it impact? Maybe maybe the meditative aspects, you know, the benefits of painting might have meditative benefits, sort of. You know, yeah, you'll have to just think about what it is that you predict would be impacted in the painting by music.
Okay.
My neighbor is Don Whitesinger. He's an art professor here. Maybe you know him.
I
or-
took his class twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and so I know that he has talked about how important music is
Yeah.
when he's doing his work.
Oh.
Yeah, I was always interested in whether like music with lyrics versus without lyrics, because if the music has lyrics, it engages like your thinking logical mind, but usually you don't want that when you're painting.
Well, I mean, when I paint, I listen to music with lyrics.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
So that might be another test, is like, does it make a difference if there's lyrics?
Yeah.
Or if it's like ambient music, you know?
I mean, yeah, I also like music that has no lyrics. I
Right.
listen to that kind as well. A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it though. It's a nice kind of a clean, you know, if you can figure out what you're measuring.